Welcome back, brothers and sisters. I am Braden. This amazingly, stunningly festive, happy gentleman next to me, this is Tim, and this is Second Legacy, and thank you for stopping by. Today, my brothers and sisters, we have got so much stuff for the last episode before Christmas. We've got a little duplication of efforts of the gun-grabbing governor in New Mexico in different states. It's catching like a disease. We've got liberals buying guns at unprecedented rates in big blue cities, and we have a goofy gun grabber. You guys are going to love every second. Make sure you hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn the notification bell on. And with that, Tim, it's Friday before Christmas, man. How are you?
I'm doing good. I hope I get a lot of presents this year.
I think you will. I've got some coal on the way there. if you open a box that says coal, that was mine.
Isn't it weird how when you get older, Christmas and the whole opening presents thing kind of loses its luster? Then you have kids and it gets exciting again because you want to see your kids' faces when they open presents. Yeah. It's kind of funny because I have zero interest in opening a present, but it's so much fun watching the kids do it.
Yeah, but watching other people have joy. You know what it's like, Tim? I liken it to having someone who's new to the firearms world experience freedom. That look on their face when they flip a giggle switch. When a suppressor gives blowback right in their face. It's a one-of-a-kind thing. It's a one-of-a-kind thing, Tim.
Brings a tear to your eye. Literally.
It does. Literally, yeah. You might want to adjust that gas block. Anyway, that is a different story for a different time because nobody likes blowback. Anyway, let's get this, Tim. It's Friday. Do you want to talk about liberals buying guns, or you want to talk about Nebraska pulling a copycat on Governor Grisham?
Let's start off on a positive note. Liberals buying guns.
Oh, that's a fine choice. A fine choice. All right, let's get this Dr. Button Pusher number one. By the way, are you there? Are you good, Doctor?
Ladies and gentlemen, we got him.
An Osama bin Laden reference? Okay. It's Friday. Why not? All right, so here it is, Tim. Here it is. Let's bring it in. Liberal America is embracing firearms. And let me add my own little subtitle. To the betrayal and the despising nature of gun controllers everywhere. This is a betrayal, Tim.
They're going to get excommunicated. They're going to get kicked right out of being liberals. They're going to have to find another party.
I mean, there is a purity. There's a litmus test. Let's be real.
Mm-hmm.
You can't be a feminist, woke, purple hair and have a gun. Those two things, you can't have that.
No, and we also know that the far left, if you don't toe the line 100%, you go from being, part of the in crowd to quickly being attacked viciously by your former, cohorts in liberalism. And so
that's true.
It's a dangerous path to go down. I mean, they face being excommunicated. They're trying to choose safety and common sense and weighing that against lunacy and purple hair and crazy stuff.
Wow, we came out swinging. This Friday. Yeah. It's that's kind of one of the things that happens when you're part of the most inclusive and most loving and most open-minded political movement in the world until you disagree with them. Anyway,
yes. As long as you agree
as long as you agree with it, I'm so openly accepting. Anyway, that's another thing for another story. So let's dive into this, Tim, because it turns out the betrayal is real. This is number 2. The proportion of registered Democrats who have a firearm in their home has jumped significantly over the past few years. That's weird. With some analysts saying rising crime in urban areas could be behind the increase. Could it?
Could maybe. Well, let's see. Either they're just suddenly taking an interest in the shooting sports, or they're scared for their safety and they're exercising their constitutional rights.
It's weird.
And this is another thing that's interesting about these polls. So keep in mind, gun ownership they're trying to paint that as a taboo subject in the United States. Mm-hmm. So people don't necessarily want to confess to being gun owners. So the fact that the NBC poll shows that leftists are buying firearms at an increased rate, keep in mind, those numbers don't truly reflect the number of people that are likely buying guns because they don't want to tell some random dude on the phone, yeah, I bought a gun yesterday.
Exactly. Yeah, it's under my bed. What?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
So I suspect it's much higher than what they're telling us it is in this NBC poll.
Oh, me too. In fact, I think you will find this extremely fascinating. So this next part, it's delicious. All right, let's go with number 3, Dr. Button Pusher. I want to show Tim the greatness. So in November of 2023, the survey found that 41% of Democrats said they live in a household with a gun, up from 33% in a similar survey in August of 2019. Okay, so remember 2023, 2019. Notably, 33% of Democrats also said they live with a gun in '04, indicating the sharp rise has been concentrated over the past 4 years. No.
Yeah.
No, what could that be? Do you think it's because Mars was in retrograde, or Venus came around the sun a different way?
Maybe.
He's either dying or this is a setup.
C-19.
See, yeah, that was
The Wuhan Weezer was about 4 years ago. And,
oh my God, not the Wuhan Weezer. That's the worst, and also the best thing I've ever heard. Oh man, that's good. I've never heard that before. That's fantastic. But yeah, maybe it's that. Maybe, you know what, Tim? Maybe I'm just spitballing here because we were all there. Maybe it was said Wuhan Weezer, which is fantastic.
Well, I mean, that's 4 years ago. We had a lot since then too, right? We had years of unrest and in places like Portland, I would imagine gun ownership has gone up quite a bit there, given what's been going on last few years.
Yeah, it's odd because I mean, if you think back to the outbreak, and then you think about all the reaction to the outbreak and all the woke, the not woke, the civil unrest, the bonfires for warmth that burned entire cities down that were mostly peaceful bonfires.
Mostly peaceful, though. Yeah.
Mostly peaceful. Yeah, I can't imagine why. And then a lot of progressive DAs just letting criminals out on the street to cause chaos consistently because, it's not fair. I can't imagine why we'd be up this far. In fact, Tim, I find this part absolutely fascinating because you were here for this. I wasn't, sadly. I wasn't, but you can tell me what it was like right now. This is number 4. The percent of American adults reporting a gun in their household was 53% in January of 1994, 52% in March of 1989, and statistically indistinguishable 51% in the polls back to 1968 and 1971. So, Tim, this is kind of weird because if we're on the front end right now and it's 2023 and we're at 51, 52%, and then the last 10 to 15 years were a little bit of a lull, and then we're returning back to 94, 89, 68, and 71, that would indicate that the gun control approach and the gun control kind of spike would be a blip on the radar, wouldn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. And keep in mind, once again, those numbers are probably a bit low because I can guarantee you if somebody called my house like, "Hi, I'm a pollster. How many guns do you own?" I'm like, "Guns? What guns?" People don't want to tell people on the phone what they have. So I would imagine that the ownership is much higher because I can tell you as a kid when I was growing up, I can't think of a family that didn't have a gun of some sort. So, and be that a shotgun for bird hunting or a deer rifle or personal protection firearm. Everybody I knew had a gun. Everybody's parents had a gun. It wasn't anything strange, unusual. It was just normal.
It's becoming, I think what we've seen, and I'm going to do a special report on this at some point in time, but I think what we have seen over the last 10 to 15, 20 years was an anomaly of people bucking the long-term trend and trying to do the whole virtue signaling, the rise of liberalism, the rise of the anti-gun move. Because if you look all the way in our history, up until about the 80s is roughly when it started to come into fruition, right around when Reagan was shot through the Brady United. And then after that, in the Clinton era, which kind of gave them a little bit of a hit, they didn't get the hint. They went Obama, they went Biden, and it's reversing. I think in the next 50 years, you look back at this on an actual timeline and you'll see a dip down, but then it's going to return right back to that average. That's what the data is showing.
Yeah. I think that they're obviously cultures go through evolutionary periods, culturally and societally, people's views will change. And a lot of that, we saw a really, really heavy push at the academic level, at the media level, at the legislative level. We saw the anti-gunners just go full court press, and they were trying to sway people into believing they should surrender their rights. And I think that they were making some progress. And then we got into modern times. where
Correct.
everything is quickly unraveling and people are like, holy cow, I was sold a bill of goods. I want my guns.
Right.
It's people are realizing that, look, it's first of all, it's not abnormal to have a firearm. It's perfectly normal in the United States. There's nothing dangerous or taboo about it, despite what the media wants to tell you. And people are starting to come back to the realization that their rights are actually important and that they are their own first responder. Because time and time again, we find out that police are usually not on scene until after the crime has already long since been committed and the perps are either dead or gone already. Right. So you're left to deal with that situation on your own. And people really were slapped in the face with that during the last 4 years with the Wuhan Weezer and all the other stuff that was going on. So, yeah, people are going to start coming back to their rights like, yeah, man, this is nuts. I'll take care of myself. Yeah. Thank you very much. That rugged American individualism's on the rise.
America? I mean, if I had a bald eagle screeching right now, I'd play it, but I don't. Maybe Dr. Button Pusher can throw one in there. America! All right. Tim, this is cool because you and I just walked through exactly where this author went. Check this out. This is number 5. This is the last sentence, but I want to show you this. Seen in a longer perspective, they could reasonably be seen as a return to the U.S. historical norm.
There you go. See? Boom. And what's funny is I don't read these things before we do them. Like,
I know.
You got to find them, and I do the reaction stuff, and so that is so funny. I mean, that's exactly what's happening. We're returning to historical norms. This is what American culture is. This has gotten us through our 200 plus years of history, and diverting away from it and surrendering our rights is not how we maintain our freedoms going forward.
Yeah, it didn't work. In fact, this is the part where the wound is open. Is now the salt comes. Are you ready for the salt, Tim?
Yes.
Here comes the salt. All right, here we go. However, he acknowledged the changing party basis of gun ownership, commenting, as to why household gun ownership increased among Democrats in particular, it may be a response to recent increases in crime rates in big cities where Democrats claim a larger share of the population.
You think? Why do you think I cited Portland as an example?
You think that's the reason? That's exactly the reason.
Guys, just think about how crazy things have been the last few years. Things that it seems like a bad B-movie plot. Could imagine a time in America where people just say, hey, government and people and police and citizens, get out of this area. This is our whatever zone. And you stay away. And we're going to line this with violent militants, and this is going to be our party, and we don't care who owns this property. We're taking it over, and you can do nothing. And then the government goes, oh gosh, everybody pull back, everybody. It's okay. It's mostly peaceful.
Mostly peaceful, mostly.
And then of course, then there's a shooting, and then there's violence, and then people are like, all right, that's enough, and they get them all out of there. But
it's so weird.
It is so weird. It's like, so do we let the children play, or do we discipline and spank the children and go back to norm?
That is
and so we're spanking our children now, and we're going back to the norm, which is
that is so 1980s. In this scenario, hold on. In this scenario, is America the norm? Leftist gun controllers the children? Is that? Did I read that right?
No, we're moving back to the norm of taking care of ourselves. That's the norm.
I missed it.
Letting children run rampant is not the norm.
Usually, I'm on it, following you, but I missed that one. Obviously, I did. But you know what? That was a great segment. That was a good starting one. But now, Tim, as we enter in to segment 2 on this Friday before Christmas, it's spreading. Tim, it is spreading. The gun control mini tyrant in New Mexico, Governor Juan Grisham, it's spreading, Tim. It's contagious. It is. Look at this opener. This is number 7. Nebraska Firearms Group sues Omaha and Lincoln over gun orders and ordinances. Move follows Attorney General's opinion that mayor's executive orders illegally restricted guns on public property. Man, that sounds familiar.
Yeah.
What does that sound like, Tim?
Desperation, but beyond that?
No, it smells like desperation. It sounds like Governor Grisham.
Well, I know, but I mean, these gun grabbers are so desperate. They truly are, because they keep getting spanked legislatively and in the courts, and they're out there talking about how they're going to restructure their efforts going forward. They're going to bring it down to the state level and local level, and that's why you're seeing stuff like this. They're just following the directive from up top from the gun grabbers in chief.
Exactly. But the funny part about this, and we touch on this, I think we've touched on this before. The thing that the good little soldiers do, the thing that the good little soldiers go out and just do your job and do your part for gun control in your city or your town or your whatever, they don't realize that they are being manipulated for a much broader and much larger movement. They're going to get the consequences, and the bigger movement is going to take the proceeds. They are getting manipulated. Okay. And so this is out of Nebraska, what I'm about to share with you. Okay. Check this out. And by the way, if there was any questions, Tim, if it was eerily similar to Governor Grisham, this should dispel all those things. This is number 9. The Nebraska Firearms Owner Association filed district court lawsuits in Douglas and Lancaster counties, alleging the mayors of Omaha and Lincoln went too far in issuing executive orders prohibiting concealed weapons on most public property. Man, at least make it your own. Don't copy paste. Come on.
And here's what's wild is Grissom keeps getting slapped down by the courts and getting
smoked,
and even getting negative press from leftist organizations. And these goofballs think it's a good time to go out like, we're going to do that too. It's like,
that was great.
Like an episode of The Simpsons. It's like stupid is contagious.
Oh, 100%. Well, I mean, after all, Tim, hold on. You just brought something up because the Secretary of Health in New Mexico, he did teach us that violence is contagious disease. You remember that?
And yes. And words are violence, and yes, yeah.
And silence too.
Silence
Words are violence, and silence are violence.
There's no right answer here,
violence.
folks.
There's no. It's almost like the flowchart of trapping you. So words are violence. Silence is violence. Violence is a contagious disease. So if you're talking, you're spreading the contagious disease, and if you're not talking, you're spreading contagious disease. I'm very confused. How about we just sit you in a corner, say maybe next time? Because you're just making no sense. And look at this. You're driving everyone to buying guns and furthering the Second Amendment across the board and returning us to historical norms. Actually, why don't you guys keep on talking for a few more years? Just keep on.
Yeah,
Let's see if we can set records.
They're screwing themselves over. They're not helping themselves.
No.
So,
because, and I think this is an important piece. And then I'm going to show you a few things you'll find funny about this. I think this is a very important piece. And something I've said consistently on my own channel is the pillars of leftism and liberalism and gun control, they cannot stand in a pyramid. Like they cannot be supporting each other. It's impossible. So a lot of the principles of freedom are all stacked on each other like a pyramid. So they all kind of build together and lean on each other. And that's the whole system. If you look at leftism, if you look at gun control, if you look at abortion, you look at immigration, all of these things stand really strong in their focus group tested points. Like, for example, immigration. Well, no, there's no such thing as an illegal human being. You must be completely open and accepting of everything because they are humans. Well, how do you feel about abortion? Don't you even talk about a woman and her doctor. And then you go to the next side. You're like, okay, well, maybe that was just a coincidence. Abortion. Okay, women's rights, women doctor. You mean man, you can't talk about it. No uterus, no opinion. Gun violence. Take all the guns because one life is worth it. What?
I know.
What?
We point the hypocrisy out all the time here on the channel. They're not consistent. It just they operate in their little silos, and many times they conflict with the other silos of wild leftist thought going on all around them.
Correct.
And they're constantly butting heads. And it's just like us making fun of the silence is violence and words are violence. I mean, that's literally the hypocrisy that they're dealing with. And it's just they're lunatics. And it truly is. I mean,
and we're back.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, I mean, how else do you find this complete madness? And that's what they are. And Elon Musk is so right when he calls it the liberal mind virus. It is a virus. It is contagious because when you put 10 people in a room in Harvard, you might have 5 normal people walk into a room of 10 people where 5 are abnormal and 5 are normal. And by the time they walk out, they've likely converted some of the normal people to abnormal people. Then they send them out into the world and it spreads some more. And until reality hits them in the face, they go, oh man, they were wrong. It takes them 20 years. And by the time that's why they always say they want the younger voters, right? That's why they say Gen Z is going to save us because they're dumb. They've been indoctrinated and they're not going to be rational, independent thinking adults for another 20 years. And that's why they become conservative, because they realize they were fed a bunch of narcissistic nonsense when they were a youth. And then when they get to be adults, they're like, man, they've been just ravaging my bank account, robbing me of taxes, taking my rights. What is this? And all of a sudden they become rational voting human beings.
Exactly. And then they make that switch right in the 30s and 40s, right when they go, wait a minute.
Right. When they start paying taxes, they have a house, they have a family, and it hurts being a far left lunatic.
Yes. Well, when there's no consequences, it's so much more fun to be virtue signaling. Oh man, that went off on a tangent, but I liked it and I approved. I hope you guys did too. Let us know what you think in the comments field. But now let me just show something here. I think this is an important piece back on this Nebraska thing because we have a tendency to chase squirrels. That was a big one. That may have been a capybara. Anyway, so this one, number 12, Dr. Button Pusher, I think this kind of sums it up. On Monday, State Senator Tom Brewer, who brought forward the constitutional carry bill, said he thinks, quote, things are about to get expensive for Lincoln and Omaha. And those are the two cities that did it. And I think this is the important piece here, Tim. The lawsuits argue that the executive orders violate state law and that the mayors violated the constitutional separations of power by making law on their own.
Mm-hmm.
State law preempts both the executive order and the new ordinances. That's the thing. If I could reach one person in power on the left and I could just say, please understand just this one point, they are manipulating you. You know that there are preemption laws in Nebraska where you can't do what you just did.
Mm-hmm.
You know they just passed laws which further curtail your ability to infringe upon Second Amendment rights. And yet you see Governor Grisham getting smoked across the board, nationally and locally. And some gun controllers somewhere said, hey, this is a good idea. Try it in Lincoln and Nebraska. And you went, okay, you're going to bear the brunt of all the financial consequences and penalties. The people of Lincoln and Omaha are going to have all of the impacts because they won't have better roads. They won't have better buses. They won't have better policing because you spent all your money infringing on the rights of those same people because someone told you at a high end. They get to say, look at what we did in Omaha and Lincoln, and you're stuck with the bill.
Yep. So
I got nothing. I beyond that.
Yeah. I mean, come on. They, like you said, they have a preemption law. But I don't know. Maybe they're falling back on the old adage. There's no such thing as bad PR. They think by doing this little stunt and getting national media attention that somehow they're bettering their position. Maybe they looked at what happened in New Mexico. Well, yeah, she might be taking a beating in the courts and in the media, but she's getting attention.
Wait a minute, Tim. Are you implying that a politician would put forward a bill or an executive action that has no chance of success, has no chance of doing anything, but gets their name in the news, which has no cost to them? Are you
purely
a
hey, look at me
move?
That? Yeah, they do that.
Wow,
mm-hmm.
Man, we should think about that more often. We really should. Should consider that in our analysis. Yeah, we do all the time. You're absolutely right.
It's about every day,
every single time. Well, with that, Tim.
Yes,
ladies and gentlemen of the Second Press, it is that time. It is the time for the illustrious G3 by Tim.
And here we go, folks. This one comes from just a random person, whatever, on the internet, on the interwebs. This is Modified Cyclone, an old Modified Cyclone, the number 14 doc, had this to say about the whole 2A discussion. The Second Amendment was written before exploding shells existed. Considering that, only single-shot muskets where powder and then a shell must be packed into the barrel are actually what the framers referred to, not rapid-fire arms with exploding shells, since none existed then. Now, in a previous episode, we showed all the different, rapid-fire firearms that were available during our founding. There were plenty of them. There wasn't new technology. Where are they getting the exploding shells stuff? Is this the commentary that we see people talking about? You know, we have Biden out there saying a 9mm just rips lungs out of bodies. We have the 5.56; it just explodes and destroys the meat. You can't even eat the deer. I mean, where's this nonsense coming from? There aren't exploding shells.
No, it's a very interesting. Maybe they're attempting to discuss frangibles, maybe powder. I mean, like
that's what I think they're talking about. But it's, again, they don't know what they're talking about. Right.
But frangibles, Tim.
A tumbling bullet and soft tissue damage or whatever they're calling exploding, which literally every rifle round does. It's not exploding.
Every single projectile does. Hits and then goes blagoo.
Fragmentation, I think, is the word they're looking for.
Fragmentation. Fragmentation, frangible. There's so many F's. The big question that I have, Tim, and I found this so fascinating because I couldn't get past the first sentence when you read it. They clearly are not familiar with the Napoleon era, where these people called the Hessians carried around grenades, and they were Germans in big fancy hats, and they literally threw huge hunks of metal with gunpowder at people. and then they blew up. They're called grenades. Grenadier is where that word comes from. And that was around, I think it was before the Second Amendment, Tim. I think it was.
Yep.
And then we had pirates. We had Blackbeard being all crazy with his little, like, I'm going to throw bombs at you on my ship.
I got something else for you.
Oh, there's more?
Mm-hmm. So the first
it must be the Friday before Christmas.
The first recorded use of an actual exploding shell like an artillery was by the Venetians in 1376. So
not the Venetians.
When did the United States come into being? Late 1700s? There's like this
001 AD.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's happened after the 1300s by a few hundred years.
I think so.
Yeah,
I think so.
But they didn't have exploding shells. But the founding fathers didn't know what the Venetians were up to. Yeah, they just didn't know.
They didn't know.
They weren't students of history. They just didn't know.
No. Yeah, and they definitely were not coming right out of the Renaissance, and they definitely did not have an understanding of rationalism, and they definitely did not understand humanism and science expansion. They definitely didn't know any of those things. No. None of those things were occurring around that same time.
They're basically the same thing as a Neanderthal and a powdered wig. I mean, they were just knuckle dragging cave dwellers. They were very simple people. They just didn't know what they were talking about. They had no idea.
Layers of clothes. Yeah. Lots of layers of clothes, like 8 layers.
I mean, come on, Ben Franklin stand out in a thunderstorm with a key tied to a kite. What kind of idiot does that?
What kind of dum-dum?
Oh, anyway.
I tell you what.
You're right.
You're right.
We hope you guys enjoyed the Goofy Gun Grabbers and the whole segment. We hope you have a very Merry Christmas, a Happy New Year, but we'll see you before the New Year. Thanks for watching Second Legacy, and we'll talk to you guys soon.